Hello everybody, welcome back to Conscientious. Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today I'm going to do a video talking a little bit about some more nutrition and health aspects, kind of in line with this whole February thing, which I've already done a couple videos on. You can definitely check those out if you haven't seen them yet. But today I'm going to cover a few additional topics beyond just what you typically hear from dairy. The reason being is that similar to the video I did where I talked about the the health consequences of consuming dairy, I showed you guys some what I think are intentionally misleading articles that disguise themselves in the form of nutritional advice or some kind of thing where they're out for your good and warning you about the dangers of a vegan diet and trying to basically just spread misinformation. So I've got some example of that I want to share with you today, and then of course I also want to make a recommendation as to how you can avoid what these supposed pitfalls of the vegan diet are. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. Let's get into it. Alright, so this is a classic example of something friends and family and concerned acquaintances will often bring up to basically try to warn me about the dangers of my vegan diet, or especially as it relates to my children. And I of course kind of find it annoying, but because people assume that I wouldn't have done this research already. But let me just show you what I've found here, and show you why I think it's a bit ridiculous. So you get websites like this where they look really kind of official, really smart. You got the doctorwillseeyounow.com, and you have like an MD writing this article, whoever this is, Esther Enton, I don't know her, and she's talking about vegan childhood. Raising children on a vegan diet poses special nutritional challenges. Even given picky eaters and other issues, it's harder than you may think. And basically, without getting into too much of the details here, feel free to read it yourself if you want. It's really like scaremongering and trying to spread misinformation and fear in parents that you're basically going to be, giving your kid a nutritionally deficient diet by, being a vegan, unless you go through these extremely crazy, difficult, kind of like routines and checks and work with a nutritionist and all this kind of stuff. They make it sound like this really big thing when it's really not. So, they're basically just saying like what the vegan diet is and all this kind of stuff. And then, you need to be able to know about potential nutritional deficits and how you recognize them, and make sure that you're getting, all the vitamins, minerals, and trace elements, and have knowledge about their micro and macronutrients. Now, this is all ridiculous already, because if you know anything about nutrition, you'll know that pretty much most of the vitamins, most of the minerals, they come from plant sources. Especially the micronutrients, those are things that come from the ground. Everything either comes from the sun in the form of, what we make into vitamin D, or from the earth. The fact that it's concentrated in certain things, or concentrated in animal products, doesn't mean that the animals are producing these things. They are producing them from consuming the plants, the same way that you could get them directly from the plants if you ate the plants. It's antioxidant content, vitamin content, nutrient density has been shown to be much higher in plants, especially like antioxidants and things like that are way more readily available. So yeah, so basically, the whole thing just starts off by saying that there's this conference that was held, and one of the big things that they talked about was, the potential nutritional deficits that a vegan diet can cause in children, and the risks and consequences. So then it talks about who the presenters were and what they talked about, and they said they raised concerns specifically about vitamin B12, calcium, zinc, and high-quality protein. Now, I will probably make a video about protein specifically, because it is literally the most common thing that vegans are asked about. So I will probably make a video dedicated just to that. But thankfully, for this case, I don't have to do it, because they don't really spend the rest of the article talking about protein. In a nutshell, all you need to know about protein is that if you're getting enough calories from varied, whole food plants, even pretty much not even whole food plants, just like if you're getting enough calories, you cannot be protein deficient. It's simply impossible. The only way you can be protein deficient is if you are literally starving. You are not getting enough food. So let's not go into that. I'll go into that some other time. Vitamin B12, calcium, and zinc. Let's focus on those. And they just basically say that it's so difficult and it's so important for young infants and what have you. Now, right off the bat, vitamin D, they're saying it's not found in the vegan diet because its most common sources are fortified milk, oily fish, and eggs. Now, the oily fish and eggs you can claim are natural and what have you, but again, as I mentioned in the dairy video, you have to look at it as a package deal. You're not just getting the benefit of the vitamin D, you're getting the saturated fat, the cholesterol, which directly lead to our #1 killer, heart disease. It's building up the plaques and forming atherosclerosis and going to kill you. Fish also has like the highest concentration of pollution, available. So you're getting tons of mercury and other dangerous chemicals. And basically eggs, again, the cholesterol, one of the highest cholesterol sources that you can find. The fortified milk is a good thing to kind of laugh at, because the reason it's called fortified is because vitamin D doesn't occur naturally in it. They add it. So you could just as easily get plant milk that has vitamin D added, and in fact many brands do add it. So I will show you some examples, but even here you can go to like an Alpro type yogurt or milk, and most of these now have vitamin D added. They have vitamin B12 added, and they have calcium added. So yeah, let's go back to this article here. So yeah, vitamin D, again, your best source is to get healthy exposure to the sun. I'm not talking about sunbathing and baking yourself to your crispy burnt, but just being outside, in especially non kind of like peak hours, and getting some healthy exposure to the sun, being outside, getting some exercise. That is definitely the best way you can get your vitamin D. But if you do live in a cold climate, it's advisable for people to get vitamin D supplementation, and that's fine, and that's advisable for everybody. That has nothing to do with being a vegan. And most people, if they do get it, they're just getting it through fortified foods, whether they're vegan or not. So this is kind of a moot point, nothing to fearmonger about. Now, next up is calcium. Calcium, as I've mentioned already in my video about the consequences of eating dairy, is kind of a tricky thing. Calcium is found, in large amounts in dairy foods, but again, you're getting the package deal of all the things you don't want: estrogen, IGF-1, promoting hormones and chemicals, and antibiotics, and a whole bunch of other stuff that you don't want. So you could easily get calcium from plant sources, and the focus of this article is children specifically. So they're trying to make this point that, like, yes, you can get your calcium from these other sources like okra, turnip greens, soybeans, tempeh, almond butter, broccoli, bok choy, blah blah blah. But they're kind of saying that but little kids might not like some of these sources, and they're going to be picky eaters, and they're not going to eat these things. So show me a kid that doesn't like peanut butter or almond butter or something like that. So I think some of these are even kind of funny that they even make this claim. Another thing is like tofu is a great source, because I believe it has to do with the salt that they use to get the tofu to set from the soy milk. So that's actually a great source. If you just have like a little block of tofu, you've covered your calcium needs for the day pretty much. And I realize the little kid isn't going to eat like a whole block of tofu, but like my kids, my son is like 5.5, and he and my daughter, who's like 2.5, they will easily eat like a half a brick of tofu together. So it's just really not difficult to get your kids to eat things with calcium in it. Again, the almond butter, I mean, kids love that stuff. So they're saying that, it's, what is it? The vegan diet contains many sources of calcium. Care must be taken to ensure adequate consumption and absorption of this major nutrient. Again, take a look at some of the things that most kids do like. You look at sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes have calcium. Recommendation, as I covered in the other video on the dairy consequences, for adults by the World Health Organization is about 500 milligrams a day. In the US, they recommend 1,000. I think in the UK, they recommend somewhere around 800. But again, the data shows that if people are getting more calcium, it is not protective of their bones, and it is not, going to save them from hip fractures, osteoporosis, etc., especially if they're getting it from supplementation. But it's best to get it from foods, and what the World Health Organization says is 500 is enough But even if you wanted to just be, following the recommendations of your particular, country that you live in, and you want to go to 1,000, it is really not hard to get there. So again, you can see that things like the sweet potatoes have plenty. Squash has a decent amount, 84 milligrams. Oats, this is 1 cup of oats. Let's see, that has 84 milligrams. So these things are all, cumulative. You're eating little bits here and there, and this all adds up. Most of these are foods that kids, I think, enjoy eating. You look at oranges. Here's an orange. You have 73 milligrams in basically 1 orange. This is just 1 orange, and you're already getting 70 milligrams of calcium. You go to, your nuts and seeds, your almonds here, pumpkin seeds, other things. The tofu, as I mentioned, let's see, they have 200 milligrams, and this is in 100 grams. Yes, this is 100 grams of tofu, so it's really not a big portion. We make tofu scramble for the kids. They love it. Sometimes we just cube it up and kind of cook it up real quick in a pan. It's super quick, super easy. Kids love it. You can put tofu in all sorts of stuff. That you can even make it sweet. You can put it into like pastries or muffins or all sorts of things. Again, it's just not difficult. And if you are concerned about any kind of nutrients, there's great websites that you can track your intake. You can set up profiles with your favorite foods and kind of add things up. I encourage everybody, if you have any kind of concerns, use one of these sites, Chronometer or one of the other ones, it doesn't matter. Put in the foods, look, and you are not going to be short of your nutrients. And same thing for your kids. Chia seeds, again, calcium, 177 milligrams. And this is in how much? 28 grams of chia seeds. This is 1 ounce. So you can make your kids delicious chia pudding. What kid doesn't like pudding? I mean, it's like you can use like a fruit juice, you can use a plant milk, you can make delicious puddings from chia seeds. I'll show that in an upcoming video. So yeah, let's just jump back here. I think hopefully everyone's convinced that this is a ridiculous claim that calcium is a difficult thing to get. Now, vitamin B12, I have a special place in my heart for this because this was my #1 go-to argument against veganism when I was still eating meat and making fun of vegans. And I always said, well, you can't get vitamin B12, therefore the diet's no good, and that's it. But actually, there's a perfectly good, reasonable explanation as to why we don't get vitamin B12 in our normal day-to-day diets nowadays, and that is because we have just grown to a point where we don't drink, unfiltered and unsterilized and untreated water anymore. And there's vitamin B12 is produced by bacteria. It's like a ground dwelling soil bacteria, and they make vitamin B12. And it's you can just find it in water. So basically, like untreated groundwater, well water, spring water will be natural sources of vitamin B12. If you consume a little bit of soil, like you don't wash your veggies or things like that, you're getting some vitamin B12. Now, obviously, it's not recommended. I'm not telling you to eat vitamin B12 from the dirt or from untreated water. You can get sick, you can get pathogens, you can get viruses, whatever. It's definitely not recommended. But the other thing that you need to know about vitamin B12 is that large parts of the world who are very far from being vegan, like I think the last statistics I remember seeing, I'm going to dig it up and I'll put a link in the description to check out. I think it's something close to like 30% of the population in the U.S. is at least mildly deficient in vitamin B12. Now, the last time I checked, 30% of the U.S. population was not vegan. So, there's only roughly anywhere from 2 to 5% or whatever people quote of the country is vegan, but 30% is deficient in vitamin B12. It's clearly not a vegan problem. It's a problem for most people. And again, for the reasons that I said, it's just not normally found in our day-to-day, diet anymore. And the sad thing is that with the advent of factory farming and the cramped conditions and the fact that these poor animals never even get to go outside and forage, on grass or whatever, they themselves are vitamin B12 deficient. And the large majority, I think it's something close to like 80% of the vitamin B12 is actually sold to animal agriculture. The industry buys the supplements and they feed it to the animals. So by choosing to get your vitamin B12 from animal sources, you are literally just supplementing, in this artificial way, but you're killing an animal to do it. You're giving the vitamin to the animal, and then you're killing it, and then you're eating that. This is like the most crazy thing to do that you can imagine. It's like me telling you, look, you gotta, I don't know, I can't even think of a good analogy. Like you gotta earn money, so the best way to do it is give the money to somebody, then kill that person, and then take their money. Or I don't even know. Like it makes no sense. So yeah, it is very important to get enough vitamin B12. I definitely recommend it. For everyone. Everyone should be taking a vitamin B12. We have little chewable, chocolate, little pills of vitamin B12. You just eat those. The kids love them. When I sit down and read them stories at night, they each get a little, thing of vitamin B12, and they chew it. It's a little chewable tablet, and that's it. I take the same thing. We get the vitamin B12 also from the yogurts or the plant milks. Some of them are fortified, like I said. And, this also kind of cracked me up in the article here. They say other sources of vitamin B12 are fortified soy milk, rarely available in the U.S. Now, I live in Hungary, so if anybody hasn't caught that yet, I've talked about it in some of the videos. I live in Hungary, okay? Veganism is just, like, starting here. Like, a couple of years ago, nobody even knew what veganism was, I think. And when I go into just, like, a plain Jane, like, ordinary, supermarket here, the plant milks here all have, like, vitamin B12 added. You can get the All Pro, the Joya, the whatever. This is just the most ridiculous claim. I would ask any of my viewers, if you're living in the U.S., if you can just put in the comments, like whether or not you have vitamin B12 available to you in your fortified, like, soy milks, please tell me, because, like, I just can't believe this. Like, I think this is just the most ridiculous thing about the whole article. It's just downright funny. So anyway, they're saying that, yeah, you can get it from these other plant-based, meat analogs, things like that. So some of your seitans, your other kind of soy-based meats and what have you. Now, again, you're already supplementing by eating the animals. Why don't you just supplement and just get it in the plants? That way you're skipping out on the cholesterol, the saturated fat, and a whole bunch of other, toxins and chemicals that bioaccumulate in the animals. So again, not a good reason to not be vegan, and everybody should take a vitamin B12, and it's super easy. So now, they kind of wrap up by just saying that, yeah, you got to pay close attention. It says all children on vegan diets should also be monitored for nutritional anemias by healthcare professionals, even with professional help. So they're saying, even if you have the professional, if you're a parent with a vegan diet for your children, you need to remain vigilant. Children's restricted food tastes and small intakes may make it hard to provide all the necessary nutrients. Blah, blah, blah. They didn't actually cover zinc, which was interesting. If you noticed that in the beginning, they said zinc was tough to get, but then they didn't talk about it. And here's a good source. Here it is on veganhealth.org. They talk about zinc, and what they say is that it's not found in large amounts in plant foods, and that what does it say? Yeah, that researchers have suggested that the phytates found in plants sometimes make it difficult to absorb the zinc, so that you should actually aim to get about 50% more as a vegetarian than you would if you were a meat eater. But even if you look at these values, for children, the amount is so small that even if you're multiplying it by 1.5, my son's 5, he should be getting 5, even if you multiply this up. And I'm not sure if this is a already multiplied figure. I don't know if it is, but even if it isn't, it means he's got to get up 7.5. I think these are in milligrams. Yeah, in milligrams. Now, 7.5, right? So, you look at, what did I have on here? I think pumpkin seeds, zinc, boom, 6.6. So you just give the kid, like some pumpkin seeds, and he's already almost there. This is just an example. It's not, I don't think a kid's going to be eating a whole cup of pumpkin seeds. That's not the point. And please don't go there if you're going to try to hate on this video. It's just an example that you can definitely get it in foods. It's readily available. There is a little bit in everything. So if you look at this chart, they will give you, values for the other foods. Again, I mentioned, you have a little bit of tofu, you've got 2 milligrams. You have some beans, you got 1.3. You have lentils, you have almonds, you have walnuts, you have pistachios. What kid doesn't like these things? Peanut butter, I mean, sunflower seeds, corn has it. Kids love corn. Corn on the cob is great. Look at the oatmeal value, 2.3, man. It's like, how much, do kids like oatmeal? Check out my video about making oatmeal pancakes with nothing but like healthy, good, green light foods, bananas, and oats. I mean, check it out. Tell me your kid's not going to like that, and you're going to worry about this kind of stuff. The chia seeds, broccoli. Okay, yeah, most kids might not like broccoli, but pick something else from the list. It's really easy. So again, just fear mongering galore, and I think I've covered everything that I wanted to. Oh yeah, here was the article I talked about previously about the calcium recommendations. Again, this had good information on it as well as to where you can get the the calcium sources. Sorry about the pop up there. And yeah, just why would you choose the animal product when it has comparable or lower values than the plant products? And it obviously has the problems of saturated fat and cholesterol and toxins and chemicals. So yeah, I think whoever this lady is, Esther, what's her face? I don't know, Enton. I would hope somebody can educate her. Maybe I'll send her a link to this video in the comment section of her page. But I think just what I want to sum up here is that as a parent, obviously I care about these things. The whole point of me trying a vegan diet on myself first was because I had all these concerns myself. If you get yourself, educated and you learn about these things, you'll realize how easy it is, how simple it is, how much better for your health it is. Look at the consequences of, consuming dairy, my other video, to look at some of the health, risks. Look at the fact that virtually 100% of children eating the standard American diet are getting the first stages of heart disease by the age of 10, and that's confirmed by thousands of autopsies performed on children killed by accidental causes or other things that were otherwise healthy, and they already had the first stages of the disease of our #1 killer. That disease, atherosclerosis, heart disease, takes decades to build up. Your arteries are getting blocked, and these parents who are basically fighting this information and wanting to look for good news about their bad habits are looking at this and saying, oh, it's dangerous for my kids, I'm not gonna go there. Do you think these same parents are putting in all their dietary things into their chronometer or whatever food tracker software to check if their kids are getting all the nutrients? I doubt it. I really doubt it. And what you have to realize is that I think it was Dr. McDougall that said it, or it may have been Dr. Greger. I think it was Dr. Greger. I'll finish with this point. The diseases of today, the chronic diseases that are killing people in the largest numbers, are not dietary deficiencies. They're not caused by deficiencies. The things that are killing people today are excess, and it's excess of animal product consumption. It's like the #1 thing you can do to improve your health is to get rid of the animal products from your diet and replace them with plants. Replace them with whole food plants, green leafy vegetables, grains, whole grains, and fruits. I mean, that, nuts and seeds and some smaller amounts, that is the best thing you can do for your health. People are dying from heart disease and diabetes and cancer. They're not dying from zinc deficiency. They're not dying from calcium deficiency. If anything, like I've shown that it's causing more osteoporosis because people are consuming dairy, and the high protein content is destroying their bones. So, I hope that helps anybody who's kind of struggling with this, or maybe if you are already vegan and you didn't, you get these kind of helpful recommendations from non-vegan friends and concerned parents. Maybe this will be, something you can send to them and have them check out. So yeah, I think that's it. Hopefully I've covered everything. If I missed something, let me know in the comments, and you know, maybe I'll cover it in a future video. And thanks again for all the support from everybody, and really love, you know, getting everybody's comments and feedback. So yeah, thanks again. Yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.